All right, and welcome to another episode of Technology Tuesday. I'm your host, Greg Russell, and I'm here with Jerry Franklin Poe, and we got an exciting episode for you guys today. We're going to be talking about some of the strategies and tactics that you may have been using that are outdated and that is costing you money. So I'm excited to share some of these things. These are some of the things that I've noticed been going on with some of my clients. And so, hey, we're going to bring it to your attention and show you exactly what to do. So listen, if you're checking us out live, hit us hashtag live and let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you are catching us on the replay, hashtag replay and let us know where you're tuning in from. Thank you in advance for doing that. And we will make sure you guys enjoy the show. So here we go.
All right, folks. You know what time it is. We are here every week, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Greg Russell, Jerry Franklin Poe in the building. It's Technology Tuesday, bringing you the practical knowledge, practical applications, so you have practical solutions for your business. And it's about systems. And today is a system-focused show because one of the discussions Greg and I have been having half online, half offline is this idea of system changes, system framework, and getting caught with outdated systems. And it's not always the technology that's outdated, but maybe you and how you're using it because of when you got exposed to the technology. We all have what we call frames of references. And typically, those frames of reference is based off of your first introduction to something. This goes back to generations. Um, Now I know I'm getting to that stage. I'm the old man telling people get off my yard. You know what I mean? Like I'm telling them turn the music down. And that's because now it's like I don't know what these kids are listening to. I don't understand it. It's not the songs that you had a reference to. So your time, because the mind doesn't understand time like the way we take time with the clock and the years. The brain is like it's all happening now. So someone plays a song and it's a song that you heard for us, Greg, like in the 90s,
That's
and we
right.
still think it's like the 90s, right? Like, oh yeah, this is like so we see things in the present necessarily in the past. And a lot of our strategies, we're still applying some strategies in business based on when we first learned the concept. And that concept may have changed over time, but we haven't changed with the concept because we're still thinking about it the same way as when we got introduced to it. And now it's 2026, but for myself and you, like, we it's hard to believe it, but we've been on the internet for longer than some people who are watching the show have been alive, right? It's weird to say that, but it's true. Like when you think about when I first got my first domain name or built my first web page, like that's it was like 1997. At first, and the page would load up like little by little, like it would load up like that.
I remember.
Like and there was no. I know we use Beaver Builder a lot within WordPress, but no, it was like you had to actually code every. It was like I'm in the back and I'm coding stuff on the university campus. Like uploading stuff to the account so the picture shows up on the page. But our thought processes a lot of times are connected to the first experience.
Yes, it's crazy because I remember uh, the first program I used to create. You took me back, Jerry. So I gotta tell you a little about it. First program I ever used to create a web page was called Adobe PageMill. So you can Google it if you want to. It's an old program, and then after that, it was Dreamweaver. So those were the two programs I used to use to create web pages back in the day. But yeah, man, the strategies, depending on when you learn them, may still be with you, even though the like you said, time changes. And I love your reference about how a song can like kind of take you back, and you're like, yeah, you remember the song based on where you were and what you was doing at that time. And in our businesses, it's very similar, because you may be referencing what you think should be working because you learned something at a certain point in time. And the technology and the internet changes so fast, and some of the things that you've learned at a certain point in time may have been outdated. So Jerry, tell me, you had mentioned one, and we had kind of talked about, tell me your experience of something you recognized recently, um, with some of the things you learned about domain names.
Right. So the idea of your like so the domain name being your real estate online, right? So you think about real estate, and my family has, real estate, a business property. So, my grandfather used to say they're not making any more land. Like the earth is the earth. It's not like, so the thought process was the same thing when the internet first came out. It's like, oh, you gotta lock in your internet acreage, so to speak. You gotta get your domain names, and then it's like, oh well, then they got multiple domains. Like you got the .coms, you got the .nets, you got the .org. So it's like, oh, somebody could spoof your name, spoof your brand. So you need to lock down everything so nobody's leveraging your name by getting a .info or a .biz. You need to get like all of the domains so no one can creep in on your success, right?
That's right.
Which was cool when there was only like 5 different versions.
That's right.
But then over time, like you're thinking about it, and you're every year you're paying for these domains. Is 10 years go by, 15 years go by, 20 years go by, and now like they came out. There's I don't even have a count as to how many different whatevers there are.
Dot
You
whatever.
know, yeah, because there is. It's like, I mean, that could be one right there. Whatever it could be a possible thing. There's .us, there's .coach, there's .presenter, there's .speaker, there's
Everything you
you
can think
know,
of.
it's
and and
any possible option you could think of. There's like a version of it, and the idea to have all of them and to try to lock down them, it's like an endless battle because they keep coming up with more versions. So the thought process. This is, and we're going back to like the early 2000s, like the beginning of when people were getting online and starting to expand their web presence and expand their digital marketing. The idea of having to lock down every possible version of your name and all the different dots to go along with those different versions. And I was thinking about, as I was doing an inventory, I was doing a domain inventory because I do own a lot of domains, and I know you do as well. And
yes.
I was doing a domain inventory, and I was like, why do I even have this dot whatever? Because the rate on that is higher than some of the other. It was like .biz or .info, whatever it was. I was like, I'm never going to use it as the primary source domain, and the domain register was having a different rate. For the .com was one rate, but the .info .biz was a different rate, and it was like a significant difference. And I was like, well, how do I justify this expense from the rationale that the only reason I'm having it is to block somebody else from
Right.
using it?
Yeah.
And it's like, is there that many people trying to creep in on your brand?
Man, it's crazy. So the proper term for the dot whatever's is LTD, just so you know. And basically, it's kind of like, uh, it's a top level domain, or limited top level domain is kind of what it stands for. Long story short, the number of domains of those LTDs, at the end of 2025, Jerry, research said it is 300, and they have been registered 386.9 million domains at the end of at the last quarter of 2025. And there are thousands of them now, just like you said, .tv, .movie, almost anything you can think of, .agent, .real estate. Like there's just thousands of them. So the old basically strategy to get domains to brand your company just no longer exists because there's just way too many. And but some people still consider like trying to get the .com, the .org, and the .net, the main three that came out years ago.
Right.
And
Right.
then another one was .org, but most people won't register .org because they're not the government. But those were the main four. .com was for
Oh no, the
commercial.
government is dot. That's the government is .gov. So org was like a nonprofit.
Yeah, I misspoke. I meant .gov for the government ones, and then the
Right.
.org was for an organization that technically wasn't supposed to be a commercial entity. And I don't even know what .net was for, but that was one of the main one of
It
the
was like a
main ones.
network. It's like a network,
Uh-huh.
something like a network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those were the main ones back in the day. And so back then, if you wanted to make sure no one else could get one of the top level domains with your brand, you would get all three or four of those. But as time went on, so many people have. I mean, there have been so many more LTDs created that for you to use that strategy doesn't make sense. But some people have started it right back then, and so they got the .com, the .net, the um, .org, and they kept those up for years. But now if somebody wanted that same name, they could just find another LTD to do it. The other thing too is for me, because there's so many other social media accounts, I think now it's more trying to get the handle. If you can get as many handles as you can that match your domain, match your brand, excuse me, would probably be a more up to date strategy than just the domain, because there's so many things you can do with a domain. A lot of times if you want one and you can't get the exact one you want, you could put a word in front of it like my xyz, mything.com, or my, or get, or the real, right? So some people do those. And so there's ways, or you can put dashes between words to kind of get a domain you want. I will tell you one strategy that most people don't realize you can do, Jerry. So this is when I wanted a email address, a Gmail account, but I wanted it to make sure that I could do certain things with my company. I already had my domain, and so what I got was my domain.com at gmail.com, right? So most people don't realize you can put the whole .com right in front of Gmail if you want to get a Gmail account, or any other, right? Company name.com at Yahoo, right? You could do that as well. So there's that little secret I wanted to share with you in case you ever needed one. And I particularly got that so that I could keep certain things, certain usernames and passwords in that free account so that I could always have access to it. That was one. That's all the things we got with like domain names that are kind of outdated. But there's some more, Jerry. Like check this out, man. The Back in the day, companies used to try to get a keyword rich domain, right? So, for example, a local plumbing company could kind of like, besthoustonplumber.com, right? And so you'd have Houston Plumber in the name. And that was like a strategy for a number of years. Like if you could grab domains that had keywords in it, high ranking keywords, you could quickly, easily rank to the top of Google using that strategy. And again, depending on when you learn this, um, it was a strategy that a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners used, but it is outdated. And you grabbing that domain no longer really gives you the benefit of it did back then, because all the marketing and stuff got smarter. So that is another one that has to do with domains that you got to think, is this strategy still working? So the whole point of this is to share with you guys stories, not stories, but share with you guys tactics that you may be using, that you need to look at your strategies, your tactics, and make sure they are up to date. So any others that come to mind, Jerry, for you when it comes to certain strategies that you may be using, or you've heard of other clients using, that you think, I don't know if that's still legit, I don't know if that's still going to work?
Yeah. Well, I think from a mindset minute perspective, right? From the overall arching concept. So if you want to look at this from two sides, yeah, we're talking about a specific strategy, but the concept that Greg and I are discussing today comes from a much bigger strategy, which is, are you evaluating what you're doing? on a consistent basis. From each year you go through it. Like when I was talking to a group in New Jersey, probably it was last week. Yeah, last week I was in New Jersey at one of the state agencies that I have a contract with, and I was talking to the team about experience and how people will say they got 20 years of experience. And the reality is most people don't have 20 years of experience. They have 1 year of experience repeated 20 times. Because the same process that they do last year is the exact same process. It's not like they did 20 individual unique experiences. It's the same stuff on repeat, rinse and repeat. So when it comes to progress and it comes to our business, how often are we working in versus working on the business and reevaluating our systems and our processes, products, people to see, are there areas for growth? Are there areas for improvement? Is what we're doing working based off of today's technology, today's thought process, or is it something that's out of date that we're still doing it because we like it? Um, I had a mentor that said to me once that there was like 5 words or 4 words that would make you broke is because I like it. Is, because I like it isn't a good reason to keep doing it, right? So the overarching strategy, like we had to like I had to take a step back and look. It was like, oh, I'm doing this not because it makes sense anymore, but because it's the habit I developed. And is this habit profitable? Is this habit serving me now? And I think, Greg, when I presented it to you, you were like, yeah. Then you mentioned some other stuff, like, so there's sometimes we have to sit back and we have to think to ourselves and look at our business, look at our life, look at our family, and say, are these things still serving the purpose they were intended to serve initially? They might have been great at a certain time period, but they're not necessarily the great thing to do right now because things are different. Right? It's like we were told you couldn't sit close to the TV because it'll mess your eyes up, right? That's because now the TV's like you can be as close. The TV's not gonna mess you, like flat TV is not gonna mess your eyes up if you get close to it. It doesn't, like, it's not gonna be the same. You know what I mean? Like, we were told like don't use the telephone because it's lightning outside. It's like, remember these things, right? Like we were like, it was like you get electrocuted if you use the telephone during a lightning storm. It was like,
Well, I think some of those things may, people have had some experiences back then with how the wires were wired up to the house, and maybe, maybe it's not just
yeah.
folklore. Maybe somebody got their house
Well,
struck by
I mean
lightning,
that,
and
but
it.
I'm saying that that's when you have like a landline. Like that was like when you were plugged into the house, right?
Yes,
That's like when you
yes.
had a wire running, right? And a lot of people live in developments where the power lines, the cable lines, all that stuff is now under the ground. It's not like there's a wire with poles coming to your house, right? It's not like who had a lot of people don't have landlines anymore, right? So it's like we're saying there's certain things that we would do, say, believe that those things are now outdated based off of where they were. And then so I was looking at my business and you were looking at your business, like what are some of these strategies? And the one with the key terms, like, yeah, like I remember people saying like, oh, if you can get like Pennsylvania top, like PA top speaker.com, like, you know what I mean, like, or those things like that. I was like, oh, that's gonna help you so much because like when people search for like PA best speaker, you're gonna be the one that pops up, right? And it was like, oh yeah, that's so, it sounds so cool and so awesome at the time. Like, it made sense at the time, but when we think about where we are now, like the first time I heard that, it was like 2010, right? And now it's 2020. It's like that was 16. It's hard to believe that was 16 years ago, but was are still like thinking like it was yesterday. Like it was, we just heard it because time moves so fast. And the other challenge with this is that there are some of us who are watching, listening today. We grew up, we developed our level of business maturity in an era where strategies would last longer because the speed of change was much slower. All right, I was thinking about this morning. my youngest daughter is getting closer to graduation. She doesn't graduate this year; she graduates next year. But tonight we have the ceremony for National Honor Society, and I was thinking about my high school graduation, and I have a picture from my graduation, and my great grandfather was at my graduation. My great grandfather was at my high school graduation. He was 93 years old at my high school graduation. He lived till he was 98. So in his lifetime, he went from not having cars to driving cars. In his lifetime, he went from not having TV to having color television. So in 90 years, right when he was born, there was no television. It was just a radio, telegraph. I remember like Morse code and all that type of stuff. Like, and think about how much has changed in just a short period of time. Like some people don't even realize the iPhone is not that far ago. It was a couple. It wasn't that long ago. There was no iPhone. We had Blackberries, and then we had like the flip phones, and
Pager.
Motorola had the Razr phone. Everybody was trying to get the Razr. It was like, yo, flip that out. So technology for us is changing so rapidly. It was just 2 years ago, everybody was on Chat GPT for everything, and now Claude is on the news every day. So we get we have people who are doing business with a slower strategy mechanism because that was their normal pace before. Pace is such a big thing to this. We have younger people who are used to pace of change, 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 change. Things are constantly changing. Some of us were like, oh, if I get something, this is supposed to last me for a while. So we're not thinking about changing as quickly. So that is a major factor. And I think all of this is that strategies can be outdated at a much faster pace than you might be used to.
Yeah, yeah, man. I agree. Um, I think you hit it right on the head with what you talked about regarding pace and being, you know, learning certain things at a time where the change was slower. I think that's a great insight, man. I appreciate you pointing that out. Um, hey, man, something I forgot to ask you on our pre-show prep. So I'm just going to ask you here on the live show. It is what it is. Did you have a mindset moment?
No, that was it. I just made
Okay.
one. I just gave you one.
Oh, it was.
There's no separate one. I knew that based on our topic for the day, I could just slide it in without having to do the
Yes, sir.
the
Yes, sir.
preamble.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I appreciate
I
that.
mean, a couple other things, like I know you had talked to me about this, the idea of desktop versus mobile.
Yeah, so this is one for me. Like, one of my skill sets has been building websites for years, and the mobile has come along. It's not a new thing. It's been around for at least 10, 12 years. And so if you're going to be building a website, I developed a time where the websites were desktop only. There weren't really mobile at the time that when we learned how to develop these websites. So my preferred way to develop is on a desktop for a desktop. But I had to change up, and even though I may still start there, the mobile is more people are going to view a website more on mobile than on desktop anyway. So for me, I had to learn how to, if I was still going to do it the way that I learned, I had to then learn how can I make sure that what I'm seeing on the desktop is represented on the mobile in a way that works for mobile. And so the process in thinking about how you would set it up and develop it changes based on the fact that it's not just what you see or what you are used to. It's got to be based on what the number of the numbers show. The number of people are going to view that on a mobile way more than on the desktop. But Jerry, if that wasn't something that I was keeping up with, I would still be doing it the same way and not and not building sites for mobile first. But you have to build them for mobile first. Another one is understanding how because people will want a website for their business, but technically they don't just want code, images, and links to just sit there. They want it to do something, right? And so usually the next thing is, well, how do we get traffic to this thing? And another outdated strategy was to, develop these, blogs and to continue blogging and just adding more and more content. Um, and that was a strategy that some entrepreneurs will try to take advantage of, and they'll try to set up systems to automatically create content. And even now today, because we have AI, there's, the concept that if you're still doing that concept of, hey, we can use the AI to create content, it's like, my question is, who's reading all this content? Like, right, like if content can be created just like that by AI, just like that, and like, who's reading all this content that AI is creating? But the strategy is outdated. No longer can you just create content and think it's going to rank or get you traffic. It has to be developing a much more advanced strategy, which the content is a part of it, but it's not just the strategy like it was years ago. Years ago, you could just pump out content and you'd get traffic. That's not the case today. You can pump out traffic and you will get nothing if it's not part of a much larger strategy. So those are two things for me where this actually applies, building websites and understanding that, mobile first, and understanding this traffic strategy. You cannot just pump out content. So those are two things that directly related to the kind of work that I do, that I hope resonates with someone, and allow them to think about their strategies, what's working, what's not working, and are you still using outdated strategies based on when you learned the strategy, which could have been years ago.
Yeah, it goes back to the the shift. We have shifts within our society. And I remember this clearly. It's back in the late 90s. I was working on phones, pagers, things like that. And people would say you got to position yourself ahead of a trend and then wave, right? If you can position yourself ahead of the trend before the wave hits critical mass, you can ride the wave to high profits, high revenue, all that jazz, right? So the same thing applies here. What you're saying is that we have waves, we have these different shifts, and the wave is basically what you're talking about is how we consume content. How we consume content has shifted. And this is something that you're seeing now with sports, right, Greg? Like NBA, NFL, they're now on these streaming platforms because people are consuming the content on their mobile devices more so than sitting at home. So like my dad is like, I can't watch the game on TV. Well, he's part of a generation whereas like the football game was always on NBC or CBS, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
ABC. And now it's like, oh, I gotta have Peacock, I gotta have Prime, I gotta have who like I gotta have all these other things. And that's because people are getting it in their hand. They're not necessarily saying I gotta sit at home. And if I am at home, some people are like, like in college kids, they don't even like when I was in college, you had like cable TV in your dorm room. They
If
don't
you were
offer that
lucky,
no more.
if,
They're
if you
still
were
like,
lucky.
well, yeah. Well, we had my university had its own like cable system. Like there was actually like a university channel and that type of system, right? So they provided like a cable, and then you had a phone. Like so, it was like they had a phone, a jack phone, right? Phone jack you plug into. When my oldest went to college a couple years ago, I'm like, yo, I was like, do they have like, do they have a TV? Like, no. So the way they consume, like there's no phone to plug into. The way they consume, like she's watching the Eagles game, shout out to the birds, on like her tab on her iPad, right? She's watching like she's like, yo, I need the code so I can watch the Eagles play, beat up on those Giants, you know what I mean?
Come on
So
now.
had to throw it in, had to throw it in there. So it's how we consume. We were so used to that when you wanted to get on the internet, you had to get on a computer, because when we first got on the internet, it was like, like for those who don't know those sounds, that was like the dial-up. It's like you had to wait for it to connect, and don't let somebody pick up the phone in the house while you on the computer. So now is different. You can access so much from people are doing the internet, or I should say, when we think about the internet, the internets. People are getting online on they're on the Wi-Fi and on their data plan on their phone. Like the phone has switched. It's not even really a phone anymore. It's a mini computer because we don't even call anybody on the phone. We call less on the device than anything else. Like so,
You
the
are
whole
so
purpose of
right.
having the
You're
whole
so
purpose of having
right.
the device was to call somebody. The last thing anybody does now is call people. It's like the last resort. And it's like, oh, I text you, I send you a message, I video chat with you. It's like all that other stuff. Dialing somebody's number is like the lowest thing you do on the phone. So you're talking about is like how we consume the information, and we got to keep up to date with the trends in terms of how information is being consumed. The blog post was much longer. You would sit down. It was like a multi-course meal. And now people with like the shorter, like the TikTok videos and the reels, and it's like, how can I consume something in the shortest amount of time possible? There was a time when, like, they were like, let's do a video, and it was like, you can streaming can be longer, but when it was like you're doing an internet video, a video for like YouTube, before people would sit there and watch it. Now it's like if it's more than 15 minutes or 10 minutes, people are like, do I really want to sit through this? Because I really want something that's 90 seconds or maybe 2 minutes at the max. So, how we consume and the amount of time we want to spend consuming has changed dramatically from where we were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, the blog posting game, people were writing like long posts. It was like paragraph after paragraph after paragraph they would put in there. Um, on a weekly basis, some people on a daily basis, and folks were reading it and consuming it. That's almost like, reading a newspaper. But people don't do that as much anymore. Like, give me the highlights.
Yep. Yep. I love it. You hit it right on the head. Man, this was awesome. Thank you for your input and sharing. And I hope you guys found some value in this. And I hope you take a look at your strategies and see if you are using some things that could possibly be outdated that you may need to update. So, with that, I wanted to make sure you guys tune in next Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for another episode of Technology Tuesday with myself and Mr. Jerry Franklin Poe. I'm excited to share some things we got coming up with you guys. If you know someone who could value from this content, please share the show and let them know about Technology Tuesday. With that, if you need to get in touch with us, please reach out, technologytuesday.com. Hit us up, let us know your questions, let us know your thoughts, and we will talk to you next week. Take care.